works. Greg, you were talking about a Japanese word that I don't recall, and you had an anecdote that you wanted to bring into this thing about personal growth. Let's hear it.
Sure. Kaizen.
Kaizen.
Kaizen, or as you'd say up in Canada, Kaizen. See, I'm bilingual.
That sounds way cooler.
I have really two things to bring up. If I took two things from Toyota Motor Company, you know, I'm an old car guy, and I worked with Toyota for 4 years at the dealership level. And if there's two things I took from them, and this is back kind of just after the turn of the century, 2000, 2001, et cetera, is Kaizen, which I'll talk about in a second, which means continuous daily growth. And secondly, what I took from them is managing the generations. And we've talked about this on the show, Mike, where there's now for the first time 6 generations in the workplace. You have to know how they tick, and you have to manage them a different way. Otherwise, you have a nightmare in your company. So those two. But I want to talk about Kaizen, though, and focus on that a second. In those days, and I don't know if it's still the case. I've been out of the auto industry for years, but at the time, Toyota, to give an example of Kaizen, it said, okay, no matter what, obviously, level you are, if you're the first day on the job or 20 years on the job or whatever, think Kaizen, where literally every day you wake up and you look for continuous daily growth. There's an example of that that they had that was, and it really involved empowering people. Guess what they did in their factory? Think about this, Toyota, millions of cars they put out.
Right.
In their factory, you know, you have the little workstations, right, where everyone's got a specialty and blah, 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 and there's a million workstations under one roof. You know how that goes with a factory. I've been through a couple of car factories. And so you're a specialist at each station. But here's the deal. They empower their employees so much at the absolute entry-level stage, Mike, that if you're at a workstation in a Toyota factory, you got the assembly line going all day, right? Going. There is it looks like a clothesline, just a rope that goes through through all of the workstations around the factory. And any employee, if they saw a flaw or there was a problem they couldn't figure out, they were permitted to pull the rope. And if you pulled the rope, the entire assembly line would stop, Mike. And then a team within the factory, Toyota factory, would scoot down to that workstation and they'd fix the problem. And you know what? It was like 98% of the time they fixed the problem. And then they would pull the rope and start that assembly line again. Think about that. The power and the responsibility that's in your hands when you have that kind of ability to, as a little guy, and this applies to life, right? You were just a little guy. I live in Alberta, but yeah, you can still vote yes on a referendum, even though you're a little guy. And tying everything into Kaizen, continuous daily improvement. You mentioned it earlier where you said, wow, I just learned something I'd never known. And I'm like, yeah, well, you've been a pastor for a while, so goodness, that was Kaizen. That was continuous daily growth. As a final note on this